Now, if you have not already, I should say, followed me on Twitter, now is a great time to do so. My DMs are open. I'd prefer to have your guys' questions than the spam bots that they've been better lately, but they still exist. So if you have Cowboys questions, thoughts, concerns, and you can't watch our live shows or have them beyond the live show, hit me up on Twitter at WhatGoingDowny. A super thanks to get things going from Marcus Arnold. Can't stand trade rumors in happening, but Zimmer's on a 1-year deal, which we knew too. This entire team, almost, outside of a few exceptions like the GM and owner and the quarterback and the wide receiver and the corner, they're all on 1-year deals. There's like 5 guys on this roster you can't cut this upcoming offseason. The corner you can cut too. You don't have a lot committed to your team right now. This is kind of the downside you're seeing, though. You have a real chance this to turn ugly if you don't get some wins soon. Because, let me put it to you this way. If you were a coach on this Dallas Cowboys roster or team, would you have spent your entire bye week trying to change things, fixing things? Or if you're one of the lower level staffers, are you reaching out to your buddies saying, hey, I might need a job this upcoming offseason? That's where things can get a little bit dicey. That came in via Super Thanks. It is very similar to a Super Chat here, but Super Chats are for live shows. Super Thanks are the on-demand version. Edit your message, send in whatever. Even if you say, Tom, you suck, as long as you don't take it to an extreme and make it weird or offensive, whatever, we'll give you a shout-out. So, get those Super Thanks in for me as we get to another one from Mr. Man. Tom, is it ironic the last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl, the NFL installed a salary cap the next year? Great the Cowboys and how they've been since the salary cap since then. Look, they haven't been a good enough team since they won that last Super Bowl. They've got a handful of playoff wins. That's it. They're at best a C, and that might be giving them a little bit too much benefit of the doubt there. The ironic part is Jerry Jones was a big driving factor in getting the NFL a salary cap. He wanted that. He thought it would be best for the league. He might be right on that front, but it's hurt his own team in the process. Richard Robinson, $5 super thanks. Even with the draft picks, the cap space, and a new coach, you think 2025 will be different than 2024, considering no significant free agents since Brandon Carr? What's the point of dry powder if we never use it? This is my concern. Richard's right, we've mentioned it too. New coach, cap space, draft picks. You can set yourself up and be far more aggressive than what they've been in free agency in a very long time. And that even includes something like 3 or 4 guys. You spend $20 million on 2 players. That's the most they spent in almost a decade. It's insane to think about that. Total money, not even just average, not average player, total money. The concerns over the Cowboys not doing those things is absolutely valid as far as I'm concerned. And that is what gives me the most concern. So what is your confidence level in the Jones boys? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. It's the pinned comment on today's show. So if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. From Chark4288, hey Tom, hope you're doing great. Thank you, my friend. Hope you are doing as well. Do you think Kevin Stefanski as head coach next year and Robert Saleh as DC would be good for us, or Vrabel as head coach and a young OC? Depends on who your OC is. That's kind of the big thing. If you're not going with the offensive-minded guy like a Kevin Stefanski or a young OC, whatever, the head coach has to get that OC hire right. Mike Vrabel did it with Matt LaFleur. Nailed that one. Did a good job with Arthur Smith. And then missed 2 times in a row. Go look at Brian Flores, who I love as a defensive coordinator. He whiffed 3 times on the OC. You can't have that and expect to keep your jobs in the end. So, depending on the OC, I have no issues at all with Mike Vrabel. If Stefanski gets fired, it's not his fault in Cleveland. I am convinced of that. I would take him in a heartbeat. Because I think the Jones boys would prefer to have a head coach with experience in the NFL, and Stefanski offers that. And I saw him make stuff work with Joe Flacco, who isn't that good. I think he'd be able to make it work in Dallas. Alchapawar, $5 super chat. Let Dak. Do you agree with what Aikman said about our receivers and their route running? I don't know if it's so much lazy as it is. They're just not fast. and they aren't great designs. Like, I think the overall point from Aikman is spot on. I think that the route running isn't very good, and that's why there's such little separation. I think there are times where the receivers aren't fully locked in. It's not as bad as I've seen elsewhere. I've seen George Pickens just not even run a route, so I do want to acknowledge that. But I do think that there's also more than just, they're not fully locked in on their route running. So, valid points, yes. I don't think worthy of dismissal. I'll also say this. I am not upset that the Cowboys players are kind of like saying, no, that's not true. Because what else are they going to say? Yes, we're bad? Like, come on, they're not going to say that. So, that whole convo mostly went the way that I thought it would go. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on PrizePicks. They invented the flex play, which means if you get a pick wrong, it's not over. You can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. I love doing the flex plays for 3 and 4 and 5 pick lineups. One of my NFL ones this week, Joe Burrow, more than passing yards against the Eagles. Joe Mixon, more than rushing yards against the Colts. Najee Harris, more than yards against the Giants. I am not doing anything with the Cowboys this week because I am not a crazy person. So download the app today and use code CLNS over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today, get that $50 instantly when you play 5. You don't even need to win to get the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. It's PrizePicks. Run your game. From DNP Nation, which, is that Deuce Vaughn's Nation? I'm kidding. Tom, question. Do you think for Jerry Anderson to get out of the way like our guy's philosophy means having a couple of bad drafts for the next 10 years? Well, I don't think it doesn't even require 10 years. It requires like 3 years. And you've seen that happen to other teams where they have to spend money. My concern is that they don't like to admit that they've made mistakes. That's always been an issue for this team. Jerry still messed up on the running back evaluation. They don't want to admit that. It's very frustrating for me. Having bad drafts is how they get out of their we like our guys philosophy to an extent because they have to spend money on somebody else. If they have nobody worth paying, they have to spend that money elsewhere. But it would also put you down in a really bad spot in that longer time frame because now you don't have that young talent that you need. So this is kind of the problem part here. You don't have a great solution outside of them changing their ways. From Jenkins Gaming, what's the trade value for Zack Martin? It's a great question. I honestly don't know. Because you would treat him as a 6-month rental, or not even 6 months, a half-season rental for a guy that's coming off his worst game ever. Now, hopefully he plays a lot better this week, and he's not on the injury report, so I feel better about that stuff there. But I don't know if the trade value is as high as the name brand would be because you're not getting him for 3 years. You're getting him for 3 months. So that's a great question, Jenkins. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like a 4th-round pick just because of the name. But that's a lot to give up for a rental of a guard, an aging one, too. Bryson Woods, thoughts on giving Zeke more carries / what his dad said. At the risk of upsetting the Elliott family even more than I already have, I'm not surprised his dad said that stuff. Dad's not going to say, yeah, my son is not as fast as he was. Like, come on, that's not how family works. Not in the public sphere. It's fine. I have no issues with what his dad said. I don't think we should be at the interviewing parent stage or players' parent stage. Like, come on now. Look, Zeke is who he is. We've got a long list of sample size, of data, of film. He doesn't move the way he used to. He can still do short yardage stuff. I don't know why they're not giving him more short yardage opportunities. But if we honestly think that Ezekiel Elliott today is the exact same guy he was as a rookie in 2016, we're just not being serious because that's just not true. So with that in mind, give Ezekiel Elliott a new Madden rating. I have not played Madden this year. I'm far too locked in on CFB 25. I have no idea what his rating actually is. So what would you give Elliott as a Madden rating? Scale it for me from 1 to 99 in the comments section. The Great Duke bothers. If the Cowboys are buyers, does a Siaki Ika trade make sense? No. And the reason being is Siaki Ika is like, he's a practice squatter. He just signed with the Eagles practice squad like a day ago. So you can't even trade for him. You can poach him, you can't trade for him. I think the reality for Siaki Ika is he's just not as good as we hoped he was going to be. He's bounced around a lot already. Daniel M., Tom, the guys you've mentioned, and Clark, Wilson, Hooker, and Lance are the best options to trade away, but you got to go get a big-time player back in a move. Kupp for a third Hooker is good. Like, it depends on what your goal is. If you're trying to get a player back, sure, awesome, sweet. I think the third for Kupp is probably about the right value. I don't know if the Rams want Malik Hooker. They're just got to cut him next year. I don't know if that moves the needle at all for Elliott. I think I'm like, well, we don't want him. Who cares? So, like, that's fine if you want to go down that path and trade players to get players back too. Awesome. But if they're selling, they're not trying to add Cooper Kupp as well. And I would not get my hopes up for Cooper Kupp trade anyway. Tatum Brooks, are the team tours really an issue? I figured we'd have one of these. Look, in and of itself, no, it's not. And it's just an excuse. It's not a reason. It's an excuse that you've allowed yourself to become distracted. It is different than what most teams do. We can acknowledge it of like, yeah, that's not normal how most teams operate. And that's frankly what most of those players have said. But you kind of lose me when you've got Kelvin Joseph out there talking about distractions. Like, dude, you were the ultimate distraction. You got more murder links to you than you had interceptions in Dallas. I'm not wrong. You got more singles dropped than pass breakups in your career. Like, come on. Don't get me with that. I do think in general, we don't need to spend as much time on the tour stuff. That's just a symptom of the overall disease that you kind of run into with this Cowboys culture sometimes of, it's more than just football here. And that benefits the players too. Like Marcus Spears was a 3-4 defensive end. Name me one other 3-4 defensive end that's not Chris Canty, which also counts for this, that got to go be an ESPN color commentator. Those guys don't exist. They got it because they play for the Dallas Cowboys. That helps them. It helps you beyond your football career. But you can't let it be a distraction, which sometimes this team allows it to do because the owner's okay with it. It's a symptom of the overarching bigger issues, the real issues that exist within this Cowboys team. If you were to stop the tours, you don't magically stop the run the very next day. There's not the real connection there. But it is a symptom of, there's more going on here than just all football every day. So, area of the grievances here. What is your biggest issue with this Dallas Cowboys team? I'm sure many of you will say Jerry or some version of Jerry there. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. $5 super chat from Mark. Jerry Jones is smoking crack. Got the Lamar Odom was on crack joke there. He said he loves the talent on this team, says we have no money, thinks Zeke is Zeke. We have good guys, but too many bodies. I think that really shows up in your depth. I think your depth is really not good this year, which is what happens when you lose all of that depth in free agency and then rely only on the NFL draft. That's the end result there. Now, this will always be a safe space to vent within reason. Don't make it weird. If you need a safe space to vent, let me know in the comments section of today's show by subscribing right now. Cowboy Rob, Vrabel, Shane Bowen, 2025 head coach in DC. I don't mind that. We'll see if Bowen gets fired by the Giants or not. He's the Giants DC right now. I like Vrabel as head coach option. I am more interested about the offensive coordinator because that is what will determine if you go with a non-play calling head coach, if it works. Last one from Chris B. About free agency is going to change next year. They're going to blame Parsons' contract. Already hearing about the cap concerns for next year. If anyone is telling you about cap concerns, they are lying or they simply do not understand. There is so much money that can be available for the Cowboys next year that they can have some of the most money to spend. So don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Don't fall for the cap lie. If you see people claiming that stuff, tag me on Twitter, and I will come to the defense for at least a little bit until I get wore down and stop trying.